Maya Richardson had seen things most people only watched in movies. She had spent 12 years in the United States Marine Corps, serving 3 tours in Afghanistan. She had led supply convoys through roads where danger hid behind every rock and every hill. She had trained young Marines how to defend themselves when everything went wrong. She had earned medals, respect, and the kind of quiet confidence that only comes from surviving the worst and coming out stronger, but none of that mattered on this particular evening in late September. Maya was 41 years old, with short natural hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. She had retired from active duty 2 years earlier and now worked as a logistics consultant for a private security firm. The job paid well enough that she had finally bought herself the car she had dreamed about since she was a teenager, flipping through magazines at her grandmother's house. A sleek black BM, brand new, with leather seats that still smelled like possibility. That evening, she had driven 45 minutes to visit her mother, Loretta, who lived in a small apartment in a retirement community. Loretta was 73 and had been struggling with her health lately. Nothing too serious, the doctor said, but enough to worry a daughter who had spent too many years too far away. Maya tried to visit at least twice a week now. She would bring groceries, cook dinner, and sit with her mother watching old game shows until Loretta fell asleep in her recliner. This visit had been a good one. Loretta was in high spirits, laughing at Maya's stories about her coworkers and bragging about beating everyone in the community at dominoes. Maya had left around 8 in the evening, promising to call the next day and reminding her mother to take her medication. The drive home took her through Ridgewood, a suburb known for its tree-lined streets, expensive houses, and well-funded police department. Maya didn't live there. She lived in a modest neighborhood about 20 minutes further east. But this was the fastest route home, and she had driven through Ridgewood dozens of times without incident. The sun had set, and the streetlights cast a soft glow over the quiet roads. Maya had her window cracked open, letting in the cool autumn air. An old Motown song played softly on the radio. She was thinking about her mother, about whether she should push harder for Loretta to move closer, about what to make for dinner when she visited again on Thursday. And then she saw the lights, blue and red, flashing in her rearview mirror. Maya felt her stomach tighten, the way it always did. It was a familiar feeling, one that had nothing to do with guilt and everything to do with experience. She had been pulled over before. Not often, but enough. And each time, she knew the stakes were different for her than they were for other people. She slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road, stopping under a streetlight so everything would be visible. She turned off the engine. She placed her hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, exactly where they could be seen. She took a deep breath and waited. The patrol car sat behind her for what felt like a long time. Maya watched in the side mirror as the officer ran her plates. She knew she had done nothing wrong. She had been driving exactly the speed limit. Her registration was current. Her license was valid. There was no reason for this stop, but she also knew that sometimes reasons didn't matter. Finally, the officer stepped out of his vehicle. He was a tall white man, maybe mid-40s, with a thick build and a crew cut that was starting to gray at the temples. He walked slowly toward her car, one hand resting on his belt near his weapon. His flashlight beam swept across the interior of her BMW before settling on her face. Maya kept her hands visible and her expression neutral. The officer stopped at her window and looked at her for a long moment before speaking. His name tag read Holt. "License and registration," he said. His voice was flat, but there was something underneath it. Something Maya recognized from her years of reading people in high-pressure situations. "Good evening, officer," Maya said calmly. "My license is in my purse on the passenger seat. My registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them slowly. Is that all right?" Holt didn't answer right away. He just kept staring at her, his flashlight still pointed at her face. "Go ahead," he finally said. Maya moved slowly and deliberately, the way she had learned to move in situations where any sudden gesture could be misunderstood. She retrieved her license from her wallet and her registration from the glove box. She also pulled out her military ID, Hoping it might help establish some common ground, she handed all 3 documents to Officer Holt. He looked at the license first, then the registration. When he saw the military ID, something flickered across his face. Maya couldn't quite read it. Surprise, maybe, or something else. Marine Corps, he said, more to himself than to her. Yes, sir. Retired Sergeant First Class. 3 tours overseas. Holt looked at her, then back at the documents, then at the car. His jaw tightened. Nice car, he said. The way he said it didn't sound like a compliment. Must have cost a pretty penny. Maya felt the shift in the air. She had felt it before, that moment when a conversation stopped being routine and became something else entirely. I saved up for it, she said simply. Is there a problem, officer? Was I speeding? Holt ignored her question. He took a step back and looked at the BMW again, running his flashlight along the windows and the doors. Where are you coming from tonight? He asked. I was visiting my mother. She lives at the Sunrise Village Retirement Community, about 45 minutes from here. And where are you headed? Home. I live in Eastbrook. Holt nodded slowly, but he didn't seem satisfied. He was looking at Maya like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve, and he didn't like any of the pieces. You know, we've had some break-ins in this area lately, he said. Nice cars like this one going missing. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Maya felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her voice steady. No, sir, I wouldn't. This is my car. You're holding the registration with my name on it. Could be stolen documents? Wouldn't be the first time. Maya said nothing. She knew where this was going. She had known it from the moment he said, nice car, in that tone. But she also knew that losing her temper would only make things worse. Officer Holt handed back her documents, but didn't step away from the window. Tell you what, he said. I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle. Maya's heart was pounding now, but her hands remained steady on the wheel. May I ask why, officer? Because I said so. Now step out of the vehicle. In her years as a Marine, Maya had faced insurgents, survived ambush, and made life-or-death decisions under fire. She had learned that sometimes the best thing you could do was stay calm, assess the situation, and wait for the right moment to act. This was one of those moments. She slowly reached for her phone, which was sitting in the cup holder, and pressed the record button before placing it face up where it would capture everything. Then she opened the door and stepped out into the cool September night, keeping her hands visible at all times. She had no idea that the next few minutes would change her life forever. The night air was cool against Maya's skin as she stood beside her car. She kept her hands slightly raised, palms open, fingers spread. It was a posture she had taught countless young Marines. During training, non-threatening, visible, controlled. Officer Holt circled around her slowly, his flashlight beam moving up and down her body like he was searching for something that wasn't there. Maya was wearing simple clothes. A gray sweater, dark jeans, white sneakers. Nothing suspicious, nothing out of the ordinary, but the way Holt was looking at her made her feel like a criminal. Hands on the vehicle, he said. Spread your feet. Maya hesitated for just a second. Officer, I haven't done anything wrong. Can you please tell me what this is about? I said hands on the vehicle. Maya complied. She placed her palms flat against the side of her BMW, the metal still warm from the engine. She spread her feet apart. She stared straight ahead at the dark trees lining the street and tried to control her breathing. She had been trained to stay calm in combat. She had been shot at. She had watched friends get hurt. She had made impossible decisions in impossible moments. But this felt different somehow. This felt personal in a way that war never did. Holt patted her down roughly, his hands moving over her sides, her back, her legs. Maya clenched her jaw but said nothing. She knew her rights. She knew this search was probably illegal without probable cause. But she also knew that arguing with a police officer on a dark street in the middle of nowhere was not how you survived these situations. Clean, Holt muttered. Sounding almost disappointed, he stepped back and walked over to her car, shining his flashlight through the windows again. Mind if I search the vehicle? He asked. But it didn't sound like a question. Actually, I do mind, Maya said, turning around slowly. I don't consent to a search. I know my rights, officer. You need probable cause or a warrant. Holt's face changed. His eyes narrowed and his jaw tightened. He took a step toward her. You know what? I smell marijuana coming from this vehicle. That gives me probable cause. Maya almost laughed. Almost. She had never smoked marijuana in her life. She didn't even drink alcohol. Her body was a temple, her drill instructor used to say, and she had taken those words to heart. There's no marijuana in my car, she said firmly. I don't use drugs? I never have. Well, I smell it. So either you're lying or someone who was in this car recently was smoking. Either way, I'm searching this vehicle. Maya watched as Holt opened her driver's side door and began going through her car. He checked under the seats. He opened the glove compartment and dumped everything out. He went through her purse, pulling out her wallet, her keys, her lipstick. Scattering everything across the passenger seat, she stood there, fists clenched at her sides, watching this man violate her space, her property, her dignity. She thought about her grandmother, who had lived through times when this kind of treatment was even more common, even more brutal. She thought about all the progress that was supposed to have been made, and how it could disappear so quickly on a dark road with no witnesses, but there were witnesses. Maya had almost forgotten. A young couple had been walking their dog on the sidewalk across the street. They had stopped when they saw the flashing lights, and now they were standing there, watching everything unfold. The woman had her phone out. She was recording. Maya felt a small spark of hope. Holt emerged from the car empty-handed. His face was red with frustration. He had found nothing because there was nothing to find. Where is it? He demanded, getting close to Maya's face. Where did you hide it? There's nothing to hide, Maya said, keeping her voice even despite the anger burning in her chest. I told you. I don't do drugs. I'm a retired Marine. I have a security clearance. Do you really think I would risk everything for marijuana? Holt's expression twisted into something ugly. He leaned in closer, so close that Maya could smell coffee on his breath. You people always have an excuse, he said quietly, almost whispering. Always got some story. But I know what I know. Women like you don't drive cars like that unless something dirty is going on. Women like you, the words hit Maya like a punch to the stomach. There it was, out in the open. No more pretending this was about a traffic stop or the smell of marijuana or anything other than what it really was. Maya had spent her adult life serving a country that didn't always love her back. She had worn the uniform with pride, had risked her life for strangers who would never know her name. And now she was standing on the side of a road, being told she didn't deserve what she had earned. I want your badge number, Maya said, her voice shaking slightly but still strong. And your supervisor's name. I'm filing a complaint? Holt laughed. It was a cold sound, empty of any real humor. Go ahead. File whatever you want. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? You think anyone cares? He reached out and grabbed Maya's arm, hard. His fingers dug into her bicep. Now get back in your car and get out of my town. And don't let me catch you around here again, or next time I won't be so nice. What happened next was pure instinct. Maya had been grabbed before. In training. In combat. She knew the difference between a touch and an attack. And the way Holt's hand closed around her arm felt like a threat. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. 12 years of training took over. She pivoted her weight, rotated her arm in a circular motion, and broke his grip cleanly. Then she stepped back, creating distance, her hands coming up in a defensive posture. She didn't hit him. She didn't kick him. She didn't do anything aggressive. She simply freed herself from his grasp and protected her space, but to Officer Holt, it might as well have been a declaration of war. His face went from red to purple. He reached for his radio with one hand and his weapon with the other. That's it, he shouted. You're under arrest. Assault on a police officer. Get on the ground, now. Maya's heart was racing, but her training held. She slowly lowered herself to her knees, then lay flat on the cold pavement, her hands stretched out in front of her. She could feel the rough asphalt against her cheek, could see the flashing lights reflecting off the wet street. "I did not assault you," she said loudly, making sure her voice would carry. Making sure the couple across the street could hear. Making sure her phone, still recording in the cup holder, would pick up every word. "I defended myself when you grabbed me. I have witnesses. I have video." Holt didn't respond. He just walked over and put his knee on her back, pressing down hard as he pulled her arms behind her and slapped handcuffs on her wrists. The metal was cold and tight, biting into her skin as he hauled her to her feet. Maya caught the eye of the woman across the street. The woman was still recording, her face pale with shock. Her partner had his phone out too. They had seen everything. "Please," Maya called out to them. "Please don't delete that video, please." The woman nodded, her hands trembling. Officer Holt shoved Maya toward his patrol car, opened the back door, and pushed her inside. She landed awkwardly on the hard plastic seat, her shoulder hitting the metal cage that separated the front from the back as the door slammed shut. Maya looked out the window at her beautiful black BMW sitting alone under the streetlight. Her purse contents were still scattered across the front seat. Her phone was still recording, capturing an empty car and the sound of distant sirens as backup arrived. She had done everything right. She had been polite. She had cooperated. She had known her rights and tried to exercise them. And still, here she was, handcuffed in the back of a police car, facing charges for a crime she didn't commit, but Maya Richardson was not going to be a victim. She had survived too much to give up now. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The ride to the police station felt like it lasted forever. Maya sat in the back of the patrol car with her hands cuffed behind her, her shoulders aching from the awkward position. Every bump in the road sent a jolt of pain through her body. The plastic seat was hard and uncomfortable, designed to make people feel small and powerless. Officer Holt didn't say a word during the drive. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw set, his hands tight on the steering wheel. Maya watched him through the metal cage that separated them. She wondered what kind of man could do this to another person and feel nothing. She wondered how many others had sat where she was sitting now, innocent and afraid, with no one to believe them. But Maya wasn't afraid. She was angry. A cold, focused anger that burned in her chest like a pilot light waiting to ignite. She had learned a long time ago that fear was useless in moments like this. Fear made you weak. Fear made you give up. Anger, when controlled, could be a weapon. They arrived at the Ridgewood police station around 9:30. It was a small building, clean and modern, with an American flag hanging by the front entrance. The kind of place that looks safe and welcoming from the outside. The kind of place where terrible things could happen behind closed doors. Holt pulled her out of the car and marched her inside. The fluorescent lights were harsh after the darkness outside, making Maya squint. A few other officers looked up as they entered. Some of them glanced at Maya, then looked away. None of them asked questions. She was processed like a package. Fingerprinted, photographed. Her personal belongings were taken and sealed in a plastic bag. Her sweater, the one her mother had given her last Christmas, was replaced with an orange jumpsuit that smelled like industrial detergent. Through it all, Maya stayed silent. She answered only the questions she was required to answer. Name, date of birth, address. She did not explain. She did not defend herself. She knew that anything she said could be twisted and used against her later. Her time to speak would come, but this wasn't it. They put her in a holding cell by herself. It was a small room with concrete walls, a metal bench, and a toilet with no privacy. The door was solid steel with a small window that let the guards watch her. Maya sat down on the bench, closed her eyes, and focused on her breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow and steady, she thought about her mother, probably asleep by now in her little apartment, not knowing that her daughter was sitting in a jail cell. She thought about her father, who had passed away 5 years ago, and how he used to tell her that the world wasn't fair, but that didn't mean you stopped fighting. She thought about the young Marines she had trained. The ones she had told to stay strong even when everything seemed hopeless. She would take her own advice now. Around 11 o'clock. A guard came to her cell and told her she had a phone call. Maya followed him to a phone mounted on the wall in a small hallway. She picked up the receiver and dialed the only number she knew by heart besides her mother's. Denise Carter answered on the second ring. Denise was a civil rights attorney based in the city, about an hour from Ridgewood. Maya had met her 3 years ago at a veterans event, and they had stayed in touch. Denise was sharp, fearless, and had spent her entire career fighting cases exactly like this one. If anyone could help, it was her. Maya? Denise's voice was alert, even though it was late. What's wrong? Maya told her everything. The traffic stop. The accusations. The search. The moment Holt had grabbed her arm and how she had instinctively broken his grip. The arrest. The charges. She kept her voice low and steady, even though her hands were shaking. When she finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Don't say another word to anyone, Denise said finally. Not to the officers, not to any other inmates, not to anyone. I'll be there first thing in the morning for your arraignment. We're going to fight this, Maya. Do you hear me? We're going to fight this and we're going to win. Maya felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief exactly, but something close to it. Hope, maybe. There were witnesses, Maya said. A young couple across the street. They were recording on their phones. And my phone was recording too in my car. That's good, Denise said. That's very good. I'll track them down. And I'll make sure your car is secured and your phone is preserved as evidence. Just hold tight, okay? I know this is hard, but you've survived worse. You can survive this. Maya hung up the phone and let the guard lead her back to her cell. She lay down on the metal bench, using her arm as a pillow, and stared at the ceiling. The lights never turned off in holding cells. It was always bright, always cold, always uncomfortable. Another way to break people down, to make them feel less than human. But Maya wasn't broken. Not even close. The next morning, everything moved quickly. Denise arrived at 7:30 in a sharp black suit, her briefcase full of papers and her eyes full of fire. She met with Maya in a small conference room and went over the charges: assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, obstruction of justice. If convicted, Maya could face up to 5 years in prison. They're trying to scare you, Denise said. They know their case is weak, so they're piling on charges to pressure you into a plea deal. Don't fall for it. We're going to trial if we have to. The arraignment was at 9. Maya stood before a judge in her orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her now, and listened as the prosecutor read off the charges like they were facts instead of lies. The judge set bail at $20,000. Denise had already arranged for a bail bondsman. By 11 o'clock, Maya was walking out of the courthouse. Blinking in the bright morning sun, she felt like she had been underwater for hours, and was finally coming up for air. Denise drove her to pick up her car, which had been towed to an impound lot. The fee was $300. Maya paid it without complaint, even though it felt like being robbed twice. Her phone was still in the cup holder where she had left it. The battery was dead, but Denise had brought a charger while the phone powered up. They sat in Denise's car and talked about next steps. The witnesses from last night, Denise said. I put out some feelers this morning. Posted on social media, contacted the local news. If they recorded what happened, we need that footage. Maya nodded. She was exhausted, running on no sleep and pure adrenaline, but her mind was still sharp. What about the police report? What did Holt say happened? Denise pulled out a folder and handed it to Maya. I got a copy this morning. Read it yourself. Maya opened the folder and scanned the report. Her blood ran cold. According to Officer Holt, he had pulled Maya over for a broken taillight. He claimed she had been hostile and uncooperative from the start. He said he smelled marijuana and conducted a lawful search. When he found nothing, he said Maya became violent and attacked him without provocation. He claimed he had no choice but to arrest her for his own safety. Every single word was a lie. My taillight isn't broken, Maya said quietly. I just had my car inspected last month. Everything passed. I know, Denise said, and we're going to prove it. But first, let's see what's on your phone. Maya picked up her phone, now charged enough to turn on. She opened her videos and found the recording from last night. Her hands were trembling as she pressed play. The video was dark, shot from the cup holder, but the audio was crystal clear. You could hear everything. The entire encounter. From the moment Holt walked up to her window until he dragged her away to his car, including the part where he said, "Women like you don't drive cars like that unless something dirty is going on." Including the part where he grabbed her arm, including the part where she said, clearly and loudly, "I did not assault you. I defended myself when you grabbed me. I have witnesses. I have video." Denise looked at Maya with a fierce smile spreading across her face. "He has no idea what's coming," she said. "None at all." The video changed everything. Within 48 hours of Maya's arrest, Denise had tracked down the young couple who had witnessed the traffic stop. Their names were Christine and David, newlyweds who had moved to Ridgewood just 6 months earlier. They had been walking their dog that night when they saw the flashing lights and decided to stop and watch. What they saw had disturbed them so much that they couldn't sleep afterward. Christine had recorded almost 4 minutes of footage on her phone. The quality was better than Maya's recording because she had been standing closer, across the street with a clear view. You could see Officer Holt searching Maya's car aggressively. You could see him getting in her face. You could see the moment he grabbed her arm and the way Maya simply stepped back and freed herself without throwing a single punch. Most importantly, you could see that Maya had done nothing wrong. David had recorded a shorter clip, about 2 minutes, from a slightly different angle. Between the two videos and Maya's own recording from her phone, there was no question about what had really happened that night. Denise wasted no time. She filed a motion to dismiss all charges based on the video evidence. She also filed a formal complaint against Officer Holt with the Ridgewood Police Department's Internal Affairs Division. And then she did something that would turn a local incident into a national story. She called the press. Maya had been hesitant at first. She was a private person by nature, someone who preferred to handle her problems quietly and move on. The idea of her face being on the news, of strangers knowing her business, made her uncomfortable. But Denise had convinced her that this was bigger than just one traffic stop. "This isn't just about you," Denise had said. "This is about everyone who has ever been treated this way and didn't have video evidence. This is about every person who filed a complaint that went nowhere. If we stay quiet, nothing changes. But if we speak up, if we show people what really happened, we can make a difference." Maya thought about her father, who had marched for civil rights in the 1960s. She thought about her grandmother, who had lived through things Maya could barely imagine. She thought about all the people who had fought and sacrificed so that she could have the opportunities she had. She agreed to go public. The story broke on a Tuesday morning. A local news station aired the footage along with an interview with Maya, who sat in Denise's office in her Marine Corps dress uniform, her medals pinned to her chest. She spoke calmly and clearly about what had happened, about her service to her country, about the way Officer Holt had treated her. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan," she said, looking directly into the camera. "I led convoys through hostile territory. I trained young Marines how to survive. I did everything my country asked of me. And then I came home and was treated like a criminal for driving through the wrong neighborhood in a nice car." The interview went viral within hours. By Wednesday, the story had been picked up by national news outlets. Reporters descended on Ridgewood, asking questions, digging into Officer Holt's history, interviewing residents. What they found was troubling. Holt had been the subject of at least 14 complaints over the past 8 years. Most of them came from Black and Latino residents who claimed he had harassed them, used excessive force, or made racist comments during routine encounters. None of these complaints had resulted in any disciplinary action. They had simply been filed away and forgotten. Former colleagues began coming forward too. One officer, who had left the department 3 years earlier, told reporters that Holt was known internally as someone who had issues with minorities. Another said that supervisors had looked the other way because Holt was good at writing tickets and making arrests, which made the department look productive. The picture that emerged was damning. Officer Holt wasn't just one bad apple. He was a symptom of a larger problem, a culture that protected its own at the expense of the community it was supposed to serve. The Ridgewood Police Department tried to get ahead of the story. The chief held a press conference and announced that Holt had been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. He promised transparency and accountability. He said all the right words, but the community wasn't buying it. On Thursday evening, over 300 people gathered outside the Ridgewood Town Hall for a peaceful protest. They carried signs that said things like "Justice for Maya" and "End police harassment" and 14 complaints. Zero consequences. They chanted and sang and demanded change. Maya was there too, standing at the front of the crowd with Denise by her side. She hadn't planned to speak, but when someone handed her a megaphone, she couldn't stay silent. "I'm not here for revenge," she told the crowd, her voice carrying across the town square. "I'm not here because I'm angry, even though I have every right to be. I'm here because what happened to me happens to people every single day. People who don't have video evidence. People who don't have witnesses. People who don't have lawyers. People who get chewed up by a system that's supposed to protect them and then spit out with criminal records that follow them for the rest of their lives." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, young and old, black and white and brown, all of them there because they believed things could be better. "I was lucky," she continued. "I had a phone recording. I had witnesses. I had a lawyer who believed me. But luck shouldn't be the difference between justice and injustice. We need real change. We need accountability. We need a system that works for everyone, not just some people." The crowd erupted in cheers. Over the next few weeks, the pressure continued to build. The mayor of Ridgewood called for a complete review of the police department's policies and practices. The state attorney general opened an independent investigation into Officer Holt and the handling of previous complaints against him. Civil rights organizations offered their support, providing resources and expertise to help push for reforms. Maya found herself at the center of it all, a reluctant symbol of a movement she had never asked to lead. She gave interviews to newspapers and magazines. She spoke at community meetings and town halls. She met with local politicians and advocacy groups. Every day brought new requests, new opportunities, new challenges. It was exhausting. There were nights when Maya lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how her life had changed so dramatically in such a short time. She missed the quiet anonymity of her old routine. She missed visiting her mother without reporters following her. She missed being just Maya, not the Marine who took on a racist cop. But she also knew that she couldn't stop now. Too many people were counting on her. Too much was at stake. Her mother called her one evening, about a month after the arrest. Loretta's voice was tired but proud. "Your father would have been so proud of you," she said. "He always said you were the strongest person he ever knew. Now the whole world gets to see it." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm just doing what he would have done," she said. "What you would have done. What our family has always done." "That's right, baby," Loretta said. "We don't back down. We never have. And we never will." The investigation into Officer Holt was ongoing, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. The evidence was overwhelming. The witnesses were credible. The videos didn't lie. Derek Holt's days as a police officer were numbered, and Maya Richardson was just getting started. 6 months had passed since that September night when Maya Richardson was pulled over on a quiet street in Ridgewood. 6 months of lawyers and courtrooms and news cameras. 6 months of sleepless nights and early mornings. 6 months of fighting a battle she never asked for but refused to lose. And now, finally, it was over. Maya sat in the courtroom on a bright March morning, wearing a simple navy blue dress and the small gold earrings her father had given her for her 18th birthday. Denise sat beside her, calm and confident as always. The room was packed with reporters, supporters, and curious observers who had followed the case from the beginning. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, looked out over the courtroom before speaking. After reviewing all evidence presented in this case, including multiple video recordings, witness testimonies, and the defendant's own statements, this court finds that the charges against Maya Richardson are without merit. Maya felt her heart stop for just a moment. The videos clearly show that Ms. Richardson did not assault Officer Holt. She merely defended herself against unwanted physical contact. There is no evidence of resisting arrest, as she complied with all lawful orders once they were given. And there is certainly no evidence of obstruction of justice. The judge paused and looked directly at Maya. Ms. Richardson, all charges against you are hereby dismissed. You are free to go. The courtroom erupted. People cheered and clapped. Denise grabbed Maya's hand and squeezed it tight. Reporters rushed forward, shouting questions and snapping photographs. But Maya barely heard any of it. She was too busy trying to breathe, trying to process the fact that this nightmare was finally ending. She had known this moment was coming. The evidence had been overwhelming, and the prosecutor's case had fallen apart piece by piece as the truth came out. But hearing the words spoken out loud in an official courtroom by an official judge made it real in a way that nothing else could. She was innocent. She had always been innocent. And now the whole world knew it, but the case against Maya was only half the story. The other half was what happened to Officer Derek Holt. The internal investigation had been completed 2 months earlier, and the findings were devastating. Holt had violated department policy in multiple ways during the traffic stop. He had made a false statement about smelling marijuana. He had conducted an illegal search without proper cause. He had used excessive force when he grabbed Maya's arm. And most damning of all, he had lied in his official police report about what had happened. The Ridgewood Police Department had no choice. Derek Holt was terminated from the force, effective immediately. His badge was taken. His gun was confiscated. His career in law enforcement was over, but that wasn't the end of it. The state attorney general had filed criminal charges against Holt for filing a false police report and for civil rights violations. The trial was scheduled for later that year. If convicted, he faced up to 3 years in prison and would be permanently barred from working in law enforcement anywhere in the country. Maya didn't feel joy when she heard about the charges. She didn't feel satisfaction or triumph. She just felt tired and sad that it had taken so much effort to hold one man accountable for doing what he had probably done to dozens of others over the years. But she also felt something else. Something like hope. Because the changes didn't stop with Holt's termination. The city of Ridgewood, facing intense public pressure and the threat of federal oversight, had agreed to a comprehensive reform package. Every officer would now be required to wear a body camera during all interactions with the public. An independent civilian review board would be established to investigate complaints of misconduct. All previous complaints against officers would be reopened and reviewed. And every member of the department would undergo mandatory training on bias, de-escalation, and constitutional rights. It wasn't perfect. Maya knew that policies on paper didn't always translate to change on the street. But it was a start. It was more than had ever been done before. As part of the settlement, the city also agreed to pay Maya a significant sum of money. The exact amount was confidential, but it was enough to change her life. Enough to pay off her mother's medical bills. Enough to set up a college fund for her nieces and nephews. Enough to do something meaningful with the platform she had been given. Maya thought long and hard about what she wanted to do with the money. She could have bought a bigger house, taken a vacation, lived comfortably for the rest of her life. But that didn't feel right. It didn't feel like enough. She kept thinking about all the people who had reached out to her during the past 6 months. Hundreds of letters and emails from strangers who had experienced similar things. A young man who had been stopped and searched for no reason on his way to work. A grandmother who had been handcuffed in front of her grandchildren during a traffic stop. A teenager who had been accused of stealing from a store he had never entered. So many stories. So much pain. And most of them didn't have video evidence or witnesses or lawyers who would take their cases. That's when Maya knew what she had to do. She used a portion of her settlement to establish the Stand Your Ground Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing legal resources and support to victims of police misconduct. The foundation would offer free legal consultations, help connect people with civil rights attorneys, and fund investigations into cases that might otherwise be ignored. Denise agreed to serve on the board of directors. So did several other lawyers, activists, and community leaders who had supported Maya throughout her ordeal. Together, they built something that could make a real difference. Maya threw herself into the work. She traveled around the country, speaking at conferences and community centers and military bases. She told her story over and over again, not because she enjoyed the attention, but because she knew that every person who heard it might think twice the next time they saw something wrong happening, might pull out their phone and start recording, might speak up instead of staying silent. She also made time for the things that mattered most. She visited her mother twice a week, just like before. She cooked dinner and watched game shows and listened to Loretta brag about her domino victories. Some things didn't need to change. One evening, about a year after the arrest, Maya was sitting on her mother's porch, watching the sun set over the trees. Loretta was inside, dozing in her recliner after a big meal. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, ordinary. Maya thought about everything that had happened. The fear and anger and exhaustion. The moments when she had wanted to give up. The people who had supported her and the people who had tried to tear her down. The long road from that dark street in Ridgewood to where she sat now. She had never wanted to be an activist. She had never wanted to be famous. She had just wanted to drive home after visiting her mother. Like any other person on any other night, but life had other plans. Maya Richardson had faced enemies overseas in the name of her country. She had faced injustice at home in the name of her dignity. Both battles had required courage, discipline, and an unshakable belief that doing the right thing mattered even when it was hard. She had won both battles. Not because she was special, but because she refused to give up. And now, sitting on that porch with the evening breeze on her face and her mother sleeping peacefully inside, Maya allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the peace of giving up. Not the peace of looking away. But the peace that comes from knowing you did everything you could, that you stood up when it counted, that you made the world a little bit better than you found it. The fight wasn't over. It would never really be over. But for tonight, at least Maya could rest. Tomorrow she would get back to work.